space that's around him. He's lightning fed by the space that surrounds him. Take it all in. Breathe, forever be.
Hey, welcome to the UnSung podcast. I'm your host, Blake Quimby. And you know what? I want to thank you. It's season 2. You've made it past season 1, so thank you for watching and listening wherever you are in the world. We welcome you. Before we get rolling, check out these platforms. We're available on anything and everything you could imagine. And we want you to come along for the journey as we talk with those lifting the limelight in their area. Well, today our guest is he is a, let me see and find out what he is. Hold on one second. He is a producer, songwriter, husband, father, and also a worship leader at Gateway Church in Franklin, Tennessee. And he also is the top, so far, the top 2 beards that have ever graced the UnSung podcast. We want you to welcome the ever-talented and good-looking Mr. Chris Clayton. Chris?
Hey, what's up, my friend? Thanks for the beard compliment. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it looks really nice. You've grown it over the last few years, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, this is maybe the shortest it's ever been, but it's more manageable this way. So,
yes. I had a buddy of mine, Butch, on, and he also had a real long one, like so, all the way down, and he cut it.
Yeah,
and it's never been the same. But he's growing it back, so that's really wonderful. Well, man, welcome. This is your first time, obviously, and it is an honor to have you. I remember the first time I met you was a few years ago. Well, it isn't not a few. It's more like 10. I know that sounds weird. It's been a few moons, and when I saw you, I was thinking, what did Chris look like when I first saw Chris? And this is exactly what you look like.
Yep, I remember those days. Yeah,
look at that.
I have hair now, by the way.
Just for the record. Look, I want just the hair. That's how I remember. It's like, oh, this guy's so great. But the thing that I love the most is the one unbuttoned button at the top.
Dude, you got to let the taco meat hang out a little bit, you know?
That is so great, man. Yeah, you are, let's get into it. You Texas raised, right? Am I right?
Texas, born and raised. I'm a pastor's kid, so spent a little time in Oklahoma. My dad was at a couple of churches in Oklahoma for a stint, but man, Texas is home, so it always will be home. Yeah.
Yeah, and I met you through a friend of ours, and I remember going up to Dallas area, I guess, I don't know, somewhere up there, and we had lunch somewhere in this little tiny town. Where were you living at the time when we met?
God, you remember what year that was?
Sweet Lord, 20. See, I got married in 2000. How about we say 2009?
Okay,
Ooh.
we were probably out in the Keller, Fort Worth area is where we were at. So, and I was on staff at the time in Grapevine, Texas. So right by the airport. So we may have been around there. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a little place and we went to go eat something and we just chatted about many things. It didn't work out for you to make a record for me because I think my mom ended up getting sick and I took some time and it helped her and stuff. But it is a dream of mine to have you do something. We could work together on one song or something.
Everything's on the table, bro. Let's make it happen.
I love it. And then since then, I've gone through Tennessee before, and I've texted you or whatever, and you're like, "Hey," so you've been so gracious and so open to continue the friendship. So I appreciate that, man. You have a full family. This is your family.
That's
beautiful
everybody.
Wife, right?
Yeah. Yep. Wait, Karen and I've been married 22 years back in January, and then
Wow.
we've got our 5 kids. Corbin, Callan, Cade, Cohen, and then little Cambry rounding out the rear down there. So,
man, beautiful. That's awesome, man. And your boys, how old are they? Are they getting up there to get into college, or are they? What are they doing? Yeah,
I've got a 19-year-old. He'll be 20 in September. Corbin, and he was our first graduate last year. He's actually in music, but on the other side of things, on the production crew side. So he is a lighting tech, lighting director, and rides tour buses now all over the country, which is kind of fun. And then, we just had another graduate, Callan, this past May, so a few weeks ago. And then our two others, Cade and Cohen, are still in high school. Yeah, and then baby girl Cambry, she'll be 5 in a couple weeks. So yeah,
Man, that's I mean, I only have 2 kids. You've got an army, man, and that's so awesome. What do you love so much about just being a dad? I mean, to all boys is a lot, and then have a little girl. It's a whole nother world. But tell me about being a dad, dude. What do you love so much about doing it?
It's the most challenging thing I've ever done in my entire life. I think what's the most challenging part of it, and what I do love about it, is my kids are all different, man. They all have different personalities and temperaments and bents. I told you my oldest is into, lighting and production and on the live side. My second oldest is into farming. Like the smell of manure gets him up in the morning. Like that's what he loves, it's like, and so to have to shift my brain back and forth between their bents and temperaments. And then they all love baseball, but then, Cambry wants to, play dolls, and so I've got to shift to that. So that's a challenge, but man, and I'm learning for it to be a welcome thing for me, because I've only got them so long, and we especially have learned that recently as we've graduated too in the last 2 years. So we're just trying to pour in as much as we can. I am farthest from perfect from it. I'm just trying to figure it out. And, but I can say with confidence that my kids love the Lord and they love family life, and it's not perfect, but we're a bunch of imperfect people just moving forward every day. So.
Yeah. Have you got to the point where your little girl will maybe do some makeup? Do you do that at all?
Oh yeah, we've done that. Yeah, not the real stuff yet. We're still in play world of the little fake stuff. So
Yeah.
pray to God we can stay there for a while.
No, I know, man. I know. My daughter's not really into makeup yet, but she'll do my hair, right? I remember when she was little, and I was like, man, this is fun. I never done the makeup yet, and I'm kind of excited. So I think she's almost 12, so I think I'm good. I'm in the clear. So just let me know how that turns out.
Stay there as long as you can.
That's awesome, man. And so you're in Franklin, which is gorgeous and beautiful. You should never move away from Franklin. It's beautiful up there.
Yeah.
We envy you very much. And actually, I didn't even know this, but we have a common friend in one Sarah Lanier or Sarah. What's her last name? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we just put that together at my son's graduation because she's a part of the homeschool co-op. She comes up to me and was like, "Hey, we have a mutual friend in Blake Quimby," and I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me!" So yeah, it was really pretty fun to discover that.
So, anyways, that was really, really a fun connection because she took us to, is it 1918 or something like that up there?
1819.
Yeah. That's kind of a fun little area.
And you were right by me. Goodness gracious, that's literally down the road. Wow.
Yeah, this virtual stuff has got to stop. I think it's time that we make it official. Well, man, hey, let's talk about church, because you one thing I love about you, man, you have such a long track record of just being so faithful and just doing so many things. You're such a talented guy, but it seems to me that church and being rooted in a local church is really important to you. And maybe that's because you're a PK kid. I don't know. What do you think to that?
Man, obviously, my entire life grew up in church. You're right, with my dad being a pastor, and even my high school years in student ministry was the most formative years for me in even doing what I'm doing now in ministry. Like that was where I got my first chance to lead worship. That's kind of where that's where I had my first band that we tried to record a very horrible demo in, and just local church is very important to me. I've been on two church staffs now my entire ministry, which is not many people can say that, obviously. And they've been in part-time roles, because I've always balanced the production and songwriting. And for a season from my life, for about 15 years, I traveled and led worship for camps and conferences and did that. And so, but at its core, local church has been important to our family, important to me. I don't know how long, I'll be in a worship pastor position, but at the same time, no matter what, my goal in life is to be able to resource and equip those that are in the local church, serving, whether it's in a staff position or in a volunteer side, or people that travel. As a songwriter, as a producer, I'm still pouring in the local church, whether I'm on a platform or not. So that's the idea of local church ministry, whether it's on the payroll or behind the scenes, is important to me for sure.
Yeah. And why is it so important, man? There's there's a lot of guys doing what you've done for a long time, it is just a paycheck, right? It's a job, which is nothing wrong with that, right? But why?
Sure.
I mean, I remember when I first met you, you had this heart, like you told me this right back there in '09 or whatever it was, and I was like, man, this guy's a little different. His heart is so huge for not just the generations, but cultivating the leaders. But why do you think that should be so important in church? Because church life is different now. Like even like from 10 years ago, right? It's changed dramatically. Worship's changed. You know, the personalities on stage have changed. I mean, there's so much changing in worship, and I think it's because it's so creative, right? If you're creative, you're always trying to change and adapt, right? But why do you think it's so important to stay in a place, to cultivate leaders, to do all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I think relationships come to mind first and foremost, just the importance of community and relationships. It's been a big thing for our family. I think even as a worship leader, you know, even as a producer and songwriter, you know, the opportunities that I've gotten over the years, my church people that are on my worship team that I rub shoulders with every Sunday, they could care less who I've gotten to write with or produce that week. They just love me for who I am, you know, and that's the authenticity part of community. And I think that's in this day and age of where it's easy to isolate yourself and, you know, kind of even do the church from afar, which, you know, I get seasons of that happen for people. But man, there's something about being in the local church and rubbing shoulders and shaking hands and giving hugs and worshiping together that it's not it can't be, you know, replicated, you know, through a screen. You know, it's relationships are what make up the church. That's why they call it the body of Christ. You know, it's people coming from all different backgrounds. And so like for worship leaders, or whether you serve, you know, volunteer wise, like we're all pouring into this together from the angle of we love God and we love people and we want to do it well. And man, it's just, I think everybody's going to find their own different, what it's important to them for. But ultimately, I think it's important just for the body to be together. We spent some time apart, you know, a few years ago, and I think we've realized how vital we need each other on a local level side of things.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that as well with our team at our church, learning how to do that. Well, man, so you've been doing this for a long, long time. What is something just when you're leading? What gets you so excited about just being that leader? Like what is it like when you see something in someone or when something breaks through? Like what's a joy that you get super excited about? You know, just leading a team or whatever.
Yeah, I think from a team side of things, for me, it's unity. It's them coming together around a common theme. And that's built a lot of different ways. It's built on the platform as a worship band, or or behind the scenes, whether you're like in tech or production. But I think for me, it's like I've really strived to unite the stage with the booth, if you will, you know, as far as making sure they understand that no matter what you serve on Sunday morning from a worship side of things, we're all going after the same goal of leading people to an intimate encounter with God that morning, you know, through worship. And not everybody loves singing, but everybody loves to be surrounded by those, you know, who sing. And there's something about that as well. So I think unity is important. We do a thing here at Gateway with my team every quarter called Team Nights. A lot of churches do that. And honestly, some have been super spiritual and some have been really hokey. You know, we've just done we're going bowling next month. Like that's the thing. But you know what? We never all get to serve underneath one roof every single week. Like I've got about 60 people on my team between band and production and vocals. And so not all of us are all going to serve underneath one team on one roof as one team on a Sunday. But those are nights that I've really wanted to help them understand the importance of fostering unity and community together, because we get to do that 4 times a year. We get to see each other as in that context. So that really fires me up. I think individually, like I've got a resident on staff right now who's with me, and it's been fun to watch her take some of the small baby steps that people like me and you who took years ago of understanding what it means to lead worship, from the nuts and bolts side of things to the more spiritual implications of what it means to lead and pastor people. And it's been fun to watch her eyes kind of open up and light up to some things. And so that when I hear her say certain things or see her progress in her confidence in leading, it makes me really go, okay, those hours of critiquing and pouring into her are worth it because she's starting to get it.
Yeah.
And so that's what's fun for me.
Yeah, so your life is music, production, songwriting, all that fun stuff. What are some really great things that you see happening in the church? And we'll talk about a few other things. And then the follow up is, what are some challenges that you see just as far as the music goes and worship goes happening
Yeah.
right now?
Man, I really think one of the greatest things I saw coming out of pandemic era, if you will, was the church reverting back to vertical songs, like just songs about God, His character, His nature, His holiness, His goodness, and kind of taking the focus off of us in our woe is me kind of vernacular that we've had. Excuse me. And so it's been fun to be in the writing room with writers who are also sensing that and have conversations with other worship pastors who are friends of mine, and they're feeling that shift, that people just want to sing the holy, holy, holy moments of songs. They don't want to, kind of tired of talking about the things of themselves and how God benefits them. Well, that's part of it. I think there's a healthy balance in that. I think for a season we kind of got off balance in the church world. And so I've really strived to pull that out of our people here at Gateway. It's like leading more songs that are just that our God reigns and holy, 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 and how great is our God type songs, and so just trying to push into those, and people will always receive those well, because when they see the grandness and greatness of God, they can't help but just take a back seat to themselves,
Right.
So that's been fun to watch. I think challenge wise, there's a couple. I think finding singable songs can be hard sometimes for me as a worship leader. That's one thing I always strive when I write. Like, hey, you got to remember that as a worship writer, we are writing for a large demographic of like age 8 to 80. It's like that's a large demographic for people to be able to kind of digest songs and regurgitate them out. So how do we write songs that are easily able to grab onto from all backgrounds and educations and blue collar, white collar, soccer mom, and so I think that's a challenge that will always be with us, is how do we write songs and how do we digest songs and how do we create moments and be creative that engage the church versus disengage the church. So yeah, that's one. I'm sure there are others if I really thought about it, but yeah.
Well, I think you're right. I talking to a buddy of mine, and he was like, man, worship is just like one style. Like we've been like pigeonholed into like a style of worship.
Yeah.
And that's when you sit back and you've been a part of it for so long, you sit back and say, no way, we're not. But then you look, you're like, oh, yeah, we are. People are putting out songs. Now, there's nothing wrong with covering songs. I do it all the time. It's great. But like, absolutely, it's the same type of style. It's the same type of this. And so if we pigeon ourselves into a corner with style, when there are, like, when we think about heaven, when we think about that, what are your thoughts on that? Because heaven's completely different than what the earth is, right? It's a small glimmer of what it is, but it's different. Like just in when you think about heavenly worship, it's different than just the 1-4-5s. That's not bad. It's different than a great little a drum loop or something. There's something creative and beautiful that we might be just missing, possibly.
Yeah. I think we're going to be shocked when we get to heaven and see all the different, styles that we have on this earth, and styles that we've probably even never thought of on this earth. Who knows what the Lord has for us there? I think music, Christian music, worship culture, if you will, as a whole, is kind of figuring that out a little bit as I kind of have conversations and see it kind of organically unfold. I think about, I grew up on Passion. You probably grew up on the Passion movement. Yep. Things like Hillsong and Bethel and all those things that kind of have a very similar vibe. And I think you start to see things like Maverick City, who's really kind of taken a little bit of a twist on there and have a little bit of the contemporary modern, but they flared it with some gospel. And so they found that, and that started scratching an itch for people that may not have camped out well on the modern worship side of people that I just mentioned, but man, this style, brings it to a whole new light for them. I think you've got other people that are kind of just trying to figure out what their box is and what their lane is. Because I'm hearing conversations in the writing room going, how do we sound different than everybody else? How do we write songs differently? But how do we still stay again, I use this word digestible and regurgitatable from the church, because at the end of the day, I always say there's this fine line between creativity and songwriting of wanting to push the envelope creatively, but still remaining very accessible for the church to be able to sing. And if you can balance that fine line, then that's winning, but some people push it too far, and that's where it falls into this unsingable kind of catalog of songs. And honestly, man, nobody knows what they're doing here in Nashville. Honestly, like we're just trying to figure it out. Like honestly, like we don't go into the room going, how do we be different, or how do we break the mold? Sometimes the things just kind of pour out a little bit differently, and we have to hope and pray that it gets embraced by the church.
Right. Well, I mean, one thing you do have down is the black shirts, and I wore one today just because I was like, I guarantee you, either gray or black's going to come on, and I wanted to be cool, man. I want to make you an offer. I can't refuse. So that's really cool. I mean, I love to hear Chris Clayton's heart. It's something that I should hear every week. So if you don't watch out, I might call you every Monday morning at like 8 a.m. and be like, Chris, what's going on, buddy? I have a bad habit of doing that to people. So songwriting. I'm so glad that you're a songwriter. A lot of good other songwriters. You've written for a lot of people. And I didn't realize that it's this Burn Bright song. I didn't know you co-wrote that. That's kind of cool. That's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. That was with the buddy named Will Walker. He's up in Canada, and that was a few years ago. But he's got a lot of success up there, and it's been fun to see how that all got out there.
So when you sit down, say with someone, a co-writer, or you have a riot meeting, a meetup, or whatever you do, do you do that there at your studio, or do you go into town, or like what is kind of run through like a quick day of like what a songwriting meetup looks like for you? Because I think some of our listeners probably don't even realize that happens. So what does that look like?
Yeah. So most songs these days, no matter the genre, are kind of tackled from what's called a co-writing standpoint, where you get a couple people in the room. It could be anywhere from 2, 3. Today we had 4 in the room. 4 can be a little crowded, but 4 today was 4. But usually it's 2 or 3, and we set that up. And typically in Nashville, the typical thing is either a 10 to 2 session or a 2 to 6 session. That's usually how it runs down. And sometimes you do what they call 2-a-days, and you do back to back. I'm not a big fan of those. I try to stay away from those just because creatively by one, I'm done, and man, the cool thing about co-writing in Nashville is when rights are kind of set up, whether it's through a publisher or whether it's just a bunch of friends that are getting together, or new people that are just kind of connecting for the first time, everybody kind of tends to have their lane that they kind of run in, whether that's a lyric lane or a melody lane, or what they often call me sometimes as a track guy. I'll sit here and build kind of the demo as we're working on the song, and kind of create a vibe in the room with kind of a track, and we write to that. There's people that can help kind of do structure, and just kind of just everybody kind of has their lane, everybody kind of figures it out. Not to say that people don't kind of cross lanes and kind of get into other worlds, like for me, like, if I'm building a track, I'm still kind of turned around, kind of engaging on lyric and melody, and kind of keeping things on the rail. And it really, man, it just depends on the situation, depending on what my role is. I think it kind of ebbs and flows with it. So we'll spend probably the first 30, 40 minutes just catching up, talking. If it's someone that's brand new, we'll hear stories of life and how they've got to where they're at, and kind of family life and personal life and professional life, and just get to know each other, kind of break the ice a little bit. And then it's, a good 3.5 hours just kind of pouring into the song. And there are days, man, that we've talked an hour and a half before we ever get to it. The Lord just opens up something really cool to discussion wise, and we kind of talk, and we have to hustle to get something done. By the goal at the end of the session is to have a song done, and at the most a track somewhat built, and a vocal, kind of a demo vocal recorded.
Okay.
And then a lot of times it falls on my shoulders as kind of the track producer in there, to spend some time after the riot, usually a few hours, just kind of polishing up the demo, polishing up the vocal, and then getting that out to the writers. And then those get turned into publishers. And, these days, how most cuts, and by cuts I mean songs that are recorded on albums, are made is usually because the artist is in the room as part of the write. And so like we'll have the artist in the room writing for their project. And so and that's to our benefit because we want them to get excited about the song. We want them to feel some ownership, get excited about the song. And so they're getting the song, and hopefully they're turning it into their teams, and their teams are getting excited about it, and things kind of ebb and flow from there. And sometimes those songs never see the light of day, and sometimes they actually get made on records. So there's no magic or formula to that. It just kind of happens how it happens. So yeah.
And what is the feeling you get when you're like, oh, I made the cut, my song's on the record, and it's great. How do you feel in that moment, Chris?
Man, everything from excited, proud to relieved to like scared, like, oh my gosh, the world's going to hear this song now. But obviously it's always met with excitement and just and honor, really, because give an example. There's an artist that I've been working with a lot over the last 6 months. Her name is Natalie Lane. She's with a new artist with Centricity Music, and we've been writing a lot together. We've probably written, I don't know, 11, 12 songs, but she's written well over 100 songs for her record. And so to only contribute probably, a tenth of the songs that are in the pile to be looked at, and then have, she's putting out 6 songs, this summer, to think that out of the 6 out of 100, that was one of the songs that I got to be a part of writing, and I got to produce that one as well. So that was a big deal. So that, when you look at it from that grand scheme of things, it's like, yeah, very honored that would be part of the mix, that something that we wrote resonated within her heart, to be able to carry that really for the rest of her life. That's something that she got to carry out every night potentially on stage. So yeah, very, very honored.
That's incredible. I talked with Andy Gollahorn in season 1, and I'm a big fan of him. And I just said, hey, Andy, what is like the one thing, like one piece of songwriting advice you have been given throughout your career? And he was like, yeah, I can't remember the word for word, but he said, writing about what you want to be, or the person you want to be, or something like that, writing from that aspect of what you could be. And I thought that was like, wow, that was pretty amazing. What is, if someone's listening today and they're like, hey, I'm a songwriter, but you want to inspire them, what would be one of the best piece of advice that you could give to a songwriter in this current time?
Yeah. Songwriting, I think more nuts and bolts when I think about this. Like, songwriting is an exercise every day for me. Like, I've written a lot of songs that will never see a lot of day. And most artists that you think about are worship leaders. Let's just talk Chris Tomlin for me. Like, he's written thousands of songs. We know him by his hits. How great is our God, all the big ones. Mm-hmm. And everybody just thinks, man, he just pumps those out. And yes, he's very gifted and talented and, an anointed songwriter. But he would tell you in a heartbeat, like, you don't even fathom the number of songs that led me to those songs. So every song is an exercise to get better. I feel like it mirrors with the whole, I forget who puts it out, but the whole 10,000 hours principle, where it's like, you just got to keep pouring into your craft. And I have a friend of mine in town who, when he teaches on songwriting, he says, when he gets asked what's his favorite song, he always says the next one. Because it's like, yeah, we love it. We love every song that we write, but the goal is that the next one will be better. It's going to push us to be better. So kind of the hold on loosely principle, I think, of like, man, dig in the ditches, and keep going, and, keep grinding at it, because it is one of those things where you never really arrive as a songwriter. You can always get better, and I'll write a song and I think it's amazing, and then I'll hear another song go, that's way better. Like, I gotta, so, and that doesn't discourage me. Honestly, it really just challenges me. And so I think, to sum it up, I'd say the best advice is, man, just know that every song you write is going to lead you to a better song, but you got to keep rolling.
Wow. Yeah, I read an article. I love Ryan Adams. I grew up, not Brian, but Ryan. And I loved, early stuff. And I was reading an article many years ago, and he literally said, if you're a songwriter and you're not writing every day, what are you doing? Like, you need to write a song a day. And I was like, oh man, I can't write a song a day. Yeah.
That's extreme, but I think the principle is it's got to. You're probably familiar with him, Jason Ingram. He's a worship writer here in town, and he's written a ton of great stuff. And I heard him on a podcast once say that, your calendar should tell me that you're a songwriter. Meaning that, just like you would schedule other things in your life, you have to schedule time to songwrite. And
That's good.
the argument would be, well, I may not be inspired. Well, not every day is inspired for me to go write. Some days I'm like, gosh, I don't want to do this today. I got other things I got to knock out on the schedule. But man, at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm really glad I did this because we got to write this song. I got to spend time with people. I got to make new friends. So yeah, your calendar will always tell you you're a songwriter. I love what Jason said about that. So
no, that's great, man. So is there anybody out there that you're like, man, I would love to work with this person. Please call me. Like please call me right now. On my cellular device.
Gosh. I'll equate that to maybe like, I've always said who are 4 people I'd want to go to dinner with, like, and in turn would love to write to work with. Little all of the map. Stephen Curtis Chapman has always been a hero of mine. I mean, we've met but just to write or work with him would be a dream. Just love his character of how he carries himself, and of course his songs and music speak for themselves. Ryan Tedder is another guy from One Republic. Just as a producer and songwriter, man, love that guy. Think he's got so much talent. Toby Mac, same thing. If there was an opportunity to do that, awesome. Love Toby. I can't remember my 4th at the moment. Probably Bono. That'd be fun.
Oh. Yeah, I thought you were about to say Blake Quimby. I was like, dude, you don't even have to ask. I'm already on a flight.
We'll pull up the chair.
Yeah, John Sherrill, a common friend of ours, he says that Toby's really just a phenomenal man to know and to work with. So I know he spoke really highly of him. Well, great, man. So you play guitar, more rhythm, right? You don't really play electric. You're more of a rhythm guy, just like myself. I've been beaten into playing electric, and it's okay. I'm getting there. I actually, you know what? I got some. It's funny. I bought. My wife got me this white telly, right, a couple years ago, and I put some Lawler pickups in it. And it really makes me sound like I know exactly what I'm doing. Like it's just like I just turn put some delay on it and just call it a day, But my goal one day is to. I love the Counting Crows. I don't. If you're listening, you're like, I don't really care what you like. I'm gonna say I like them, and I love their electric tone. I've always just loved them. And actually, I think they're coming here in August sometime. I can't wait to see them. I will tell you, Chris, I was so starstruck when Adam Duritz walked out. When he walked out, I was at the Verizon Wireless Theater in Houston. He walked out. It was my first time to ever see them. I don't get starstruck by people. Wow. I literally just I was just in awe of Adam Duritz. I think it was the hair, probably. Yeah. He cut it since then, so I'm not really looking forward to seeing him again. But I love that the electric sounds they're getting. They're not using a lot of effects. I want to be like that one day. I just can't get rid of the delay yet. I just can't, or the reverb. Just give me more, So what are you playing these days? Like what, like acoustic wise, what is your go-to?
Man, I'd pull it up if I had it, but it's in the other part of the building. I have a 74 J45 Deluxe Gibson. I found it on eBay years ago, and I swore I'd never buy a guitar on eBay because you can't play it, but I was actually showing my wife what I wanted one day. Like I told her, I called it, this is my old man guitar. I want this guitar. And I found it, and it was a great price. It was a long story with who I bought it from and why it was the price it was, but found it, and I ended up buying it, and it's been my main go-to every time. So that's the acoustic. And then I've got a Martin over here that's as well that I love, but and I've got a slew of electrics back there and some basses, but I fake electric guitar. I've got a pedal board over here that there are a lot better guitar players in this town than me, so I don't even attempt to play electric guitar. I more or less have it if I'm building something demo wise or just kind of need
ideas or something. Yeah.
Ideas or something, but man, if I'm producing a real master of something, then I'm calling all my friends who are way better than I
am. Man, you know what? I went to, is it Groon?
Yeah, Groons.
We went there and I got to play it was a Gibson, but it was 1914 Gibson acoustic. Yeah. Small body, but it sounded so huge, and I really wanted to buy it. My wife said no. So I was like, okay, great. Now I went to go look at a McPherson. I've always thought they were cool. Somebody I knew had one, and I played it. It's like, oh, that's really cool. Love the McPherson. Then I went and I looked. I've always wanted a Martin, like maybe a 50s or 60s model Martin. So I played a D28
Yeah.
and a D18.
Yep.
And they were both out of my price range. But my wife, what it is if Crystal, if you're listening today, honey, we're just saying I need one more. You know,
It
if
will
they're
lead people to
listening.
the Lord, Crystal.
I'm just saying, you know. So, anyways, yes, I'm looking for a Martin, and I think it was like a '60s model Martin. Beautiful. I picked it up, I played it, and I thought I could write 50 songs right now. I don't know about what, but I could write 50. Do you ever do that? Do you pick up something and you're like, all right, honey, I'm going to go into the woodshed. I'm just going to go like write. I mean, how do you get inspired? That's because you're writing worship songs, but are you writing? I mean, like I call them. I have a buddy that says I write God songs, girl songs, and me songs, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, do you have that? What inspires you just to go out there and go for it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I've been writing. I mean, a lot of people in town know me as like worship writer, producer guy. But lately, in this last year, been writing a lot more pop, like CCM pop stuff, like radio kind of things and vibes. Even like some country stuff. Some even it's still faith based country, but it's like
Sure.
There's kind of been a resurgence of that lately with like We the Kingdom and Ann Wilson and
Sure.
some of these people, and so it's been kind of stretching me out a little bit, which has forced me to really kind of dig into sounds and like whether on keys or guitar that I'm not normally. I get to take the delay off, is what I'm saying. So
That's what I'm saying. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So man, what inspires me? Honestly, like it's kind of sad. I think like other music hasn't really inspired me lately. I think it's like just hanging out with better people than me, like music wise, has been inspiring. That's just pushed me. Like Natalie, this artist I've been working with, she's a phenomenal piano player, like real deal piano player, like master's degree in piano type thing. And the first time we wrote, like she just threw down, and she's very Sarah Bareilles type vibe. So like so it's very pop soul, and that's what we've been writing for this last year. And man, it has been so inspiring to like dig into a whole nother set of my tools from the toolbox of like songwriting and production. And just being around her has inspired me. It's nothing really that she's playing as much as like just her approach to music and lyrics. And she's just ultra talented. So that's, yeah, I'm not one to like bring a guitar home and go sit on the back porch and noodle. And I'm around it all day long. And so like,
Sure.
I don't even listen to music on my drive home. I'm a podcast guy. I'm like,
Yes.
or I'm an audiobook guy. Cause I got to have a break from, the 12 notes on the scale at that point. Cause I've just been around it all day. And honestly, I think that's a good kind of palate cleanser for me. Even in the morning, I won't listen to music unless I'm listening to like mixes or something like that, or that's come in or whatever. But, I try to stay away from music in my early morning because especially if I'm going to a write, I don't want to listen to something and then have it get stuck in my head and a melody fall out that's stepping all over.
That's important. Yeah, good point.
Especially in this day and age of lawsuits and
I
and
heard that. Yeah, I saw that.
and that's never happened. Those are probably far and few between. But the point being, I don't want to carry something in that's been used before. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. What are some of your, barbecue? I see you. I have another buddy of mine who sends me every time he cooks something. He sends me like what he's cooking for that night for whatever. But I get to see these barbecue posts that you're posting, and you posted something, man. I cannot remember a while ago. It was like I was thinking, Chris, that looks good, man. Like. You pulled it out. It had the brown. It had just like you could tell that it was just some kind of good piece of hog or something. Man, tell us some of your tricks, man, because you got some tricks going on there.
Well, I'll give you some background. Like I had to find a hobby. That was what I was trying to find. Was like, hey, golf. I love golf. It can be really expensive. Barbecue can be expensive, but not as expensive as golf.
Right.
And so I've always loved cooking. I don't know. Even my mom would tell you when I was little, I just loved the idea of cooking. So I got a smoker and I was like, I'm going to smoke meat, mainly because here in Tennessee, we don't have good brisket like we do in Texas.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
So I'm like, if I'm going to have good brisket, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
if I'm going to have good brisket, I'm going to have to make it myself. And so, because in Tennessee, people don't know, like it's pork country, like pulled pork and all that stuff. And it's great. I've come to like it, but man, brisket's king still in my heart because I'm Texan.
Yes.
So I just started trying to figure out how I'm going to make my own brisket, how I'm going to do this. And so, trick wise, like, man, I've discovered a guy on YouTube called Meat Church and Matt Pittman.
I saw that guy. Yep.
Yeah. And I follow him because he doesn't teach on a specific smoker. He just teaches time and temperature. And he's got all different ways of doing briskets and pork shoulders and ribs and all that stuff. And so I've just literally every time he puts something out, I'll just go watch it and kind of just study it. And then there's another guy named Malcolm Reed called How to Barbecue Right. And he's got a great Instagram and TikTok channel where he just kind of posts quick little recipes, and I'll save them in my phone. And I go, I'll make that one day. And so my wife and I literally, Karen and I will go, what do you want to make tonight? And I'll just go through my phone. So we've made everything from his mac and cheese, which is some of the best mac and cheese I've ever made. And then he has this thing called apple pie baked beans. Blake, let me tell you, bro, that is the best baked beans ever.
I'm down.
Just saying. So when you come next time, because you will come again to Franklin.
I will. Yes.
We will have some apple pie baked beans. I will make sure of it.
Oh my goodness gracious. So I just ate dinner and I'm so hungry again.
Are we lusting over baked beans at this point?
I think we are. Yes, and I think it's okay. Let me see if I have a noise for that. I don't think I do. I don't know. That's not a good noise. I don't even know. There we go. That's a good noise. Yes. Well, man, dude, I appreciate you being on. The big part of UnSung is just talking to people who just doing it every day, just doing their work, working hard. When I think about you, man, I think of you as a guy who, like I said before, is so faithful, is so committed, who just stays with this goal and is working hard, head down, whether you feel that way or not. Me from a distance, I can tell, man, you put your head down, you get goals accomplished. I love that, man, about you. I love that you love your family, your wife, your kids. You love the people you're with, your community. I think that's so important in times like right now when a lot of that kind of stuff is people are arguing a lot of different things, but you're standing with your family and you continue to do that. So I appreciate that from just another guy saying, man, way to go, dude. Way to just be faithful, be committed to a goal, investing in people. Man, that's your life, man. I mean, if I think about Chris, I think, yeah, he does all these other things, but he invests in people. He loves people. So keep on trucking, man. I wanted to ask you before we round out our time together today is that we love for our guests to be encouraged, but also encourage those that are, they might be front of house, back of house. They might be a dental hygienist. They might be, a golf pro. Anything. I mean, there's so many different things. And a lot of times, especially in church, but a lot of times just in work and related stuff, is that many people just get overshadowed. Maybe they don't get appreciated. And so we want to appreciate people. What would you tell someone who's just kind of putting their head down, working hard, trekking through the day? How would you encourage them? What would you say to them?
Yeah. I mean, that's funny you say, the put your head down, type analogy, because that's literally what the Lord has just been kind of affirming in me in the last really 2 years. Being in a creative town, and I've never called Nashville a very competitive town. It's probably perceived as competitive, and I'm sure there's pockets of being competitive, but it's very much a community around here. But at the same time, comparison is part of our fleshly nature, in terms of just, always looking at others. And so I've always just had this mentality of, over the last 2 years, I feel like the Lord just kind of pushed it into me saying, hey, just keep your head down, do great work, serve the people that are in front of you, write the best songs you can, produce the best records you can, love your family well. And the Lord will raise you up in places he needs to raise you up. And then he won't raise you up in places he needs to raise you up. And I would say the same is true no matter where you're at in your life, whether you're the blue collar worker who's, doing whatever, or you're the white collar executive, or you're the soccer mom taking care of 4 kids. I mean, God is giving you a task and an assignment on this earth for a reason, and pour your whole self into it. Whether you're behind the scenes or in front of in front of masses, the Lord is giving you that assignment for a very specific reason, a very specific season. And he's called you to steward it. And it may seem mundane, but I think about the moms out there who are constantly pouring into their kids, and it's like the same old schedule and the same old dirty diapers and the same old snotty noses. And I've seen it with my own kids and my own wife. And I applaud my wife of just her diligence to pour richly into her kids, because the fruit of that is starting to come for us. We're starting to see how that's coming about as my kids start to graduate. And I encourage moms, and I encourage dads the same way. I encourage, the CEO to the maintenance guy. The little things that you do in this moment are going to make a difference. May not be the difference right in the moment, but the long game is so much more important than the short game. And so stay diligent, stay true to your calling, and God sees it, and that's all that really matters at this point.
Come on, man. Well, hey, if you're listening today and you're like, I like this Chris Clayton. He's a good guy, and I want to talk to him. You can go Chris Clayton Music on Instagram. Go check him out. Become his friend. Follow him. He has some great tips of barbecue, music, family, all the good stuff. He possibly might have a beard product coming out soon. Maybe, I don't know. I just spoke that out. Maybe, possibly. Go to chrisclaytonmusic.com. You know what? Go check out all he's done. He's done a lot of fun stuff. But he's a great dude. Man, thank you for taking the time. Before we started, he was like, "Yeah, man, it's like 75 here in Nashville," and I was like, "Man, we better start this podcast before I get too angry." So it's been so great to talk with you. Keep it real, man. Keep on rolling, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. Good to be on here.
To this place that's around him, he's lightning.
We want to thank beautiful contributors for allowing us to use their music for the Unsung podcast. You can support them by going to any platform, anywhere you listen to music, and purchasing and listen to their music. They also might have some vinyl or CDs still available. You can reach out to them, but support beautiful contributors.